Today, the City Council held a hearing focused on a package of bills aimed at combating hate. That includes legislation that would allow the NYPD to create so-called buffer zones around houses of worship during protests. Today's council hearing comes in response to a rise in hate crime since 2020 all across the 5 boroughs. Joining me now to talk about that and much more is City Council Speaker Julie Menin, whose district includes the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island. Also joining us is City Council member Yusef Salaam, who represents neighborhoods including Harlem, East Harlem, Morningside Heights, and Hamilton Heights. He's also the chair of the Committee to Combat Hate. Welcome back to the program. Good to see both of you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Glad to be here.
Let me start with you, Madam Speaker. New York City has a Human Rights Commission. New York State has a Human Rights Commission. There are hate crimes units in all of the district attorney's offices. Why create another office to deal with this?
Well, we're not creating another office. We created a committee to combat hate chaired by Councilmember Salaam because hate crimes are on the rise. Islamophobic incidents are up 69%. Anti-Semitic incidents are way up. There's one anti-Semitic incident every single day in the month of January. And anti-Semitic incidents right now constitute 53% of all hate crimes. So what we did today is we had a hearing on a number of different bills. Bills to create safe access to all houses of worship and to schools, then also to create a hotline to report hate crimes because they're underreported. Many people don't know, do you call 311 or 911? And a number of other bills that really deal with the issue of combating hate.
Well, let me ask the question a different way then. If there are already at least, 6 or 7 agencies that are supposed to be addressing this, are they not being effective?
I don't think they are. I mean, we heard from a number of different committees, the Human Rights Committee. On average, many of their cases are taking 833 days sometimes to close out a discrimination case. That's a real issue. We heard about situations actually from a member of the City Council Central staff who called the commission, waited online 40 minutes for someone to even pick up the hotline. So there are real gaps that have existed for years. And so we do need to take action. We have a situation of what happened at Park East Synagogue, where congregants were trying to enter and exit their house of worship. They were harassed, they were intimidated. No one in going to a house of worship should be prohibited from worshiping freely. The First Amendment right to peacefully protest is sacrosanct. We're not trying to control that at all. All we're trying to do is make sure that when you enter or exit your respective house of worship, you can do so without intimidation and harassment.
Councilman, what is your theory about why hate crimes have been on the rise over the last few years?
You know, the worst part about it is that as a member of the human family, oftentimes people look at our differences and they judge us by it. You know, I most certainly was judged because of the color of my skin 37 years ago almost, right? They looked at me and said, you know, you're the guy who we want to be guilty. I think when we think about hate, there is an effort to constantly have us divided. But the fact that we are trying to do something that unites us, that allows for this kaleidoscope of the human family right here in New York City to be represented, respected, valued, all of those things matter.
What did you hear from your witnesses today who came before your committee?
Well, there was a lot of positive testimony. A lot of folks understood that this was about making sure, as our speaker has said very clearly, you need to be able to go to pray to God without any kind of hindrances. Oftentimes people say, no, it's my way or the highway. You know, no, everybody has the right to practice their own faith. You know, I think it's a beautiful thing when people say, oh, I worship God too, right? We call God this, we call God that. As long as you're worshiping God, you're all right with me, you know? And I think that especially in Harlem, where I'm from, there are many cultures represented there. Not everybody is the same. There's Jews there, there's Muslims there are Christians there are all aspects in between. And the beautiful thing about it is that there's respect. Harlem is really a melting pot where, you know, you tell people where you're from and they say, you're from Harlem, the crossroads of the world? Wow. You know, and to be the chair of Combat Hate is really, really important. You know, I've always said those who've been closest to the pain have to have a seat at the table.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, just this time of year, and there are other times of year where all of these things coincide, where we have, you know, Ramadan, and we're, you know, in the Lenten season on the Christian calendar, we just had Asian Lunar New Year and
Right.
on
We
and
have
on and on.
Purim.
Purim going on.
Yes.
We had the Hamantashen at
Yes,
City Hall
exactly.
yesterday. Is the idea that the mayor, the former mayor, Eric Adams, he issued an executive order asking for 100-foot buffer zones. It sounds like you're now trying to sort of manage and massage and replace that with something that's a little different. You said there won't be the buffer zone and there won't be criminal penalties. What will there be that would at least be a deterrence to people?
Sure, our bills never had criminal penalties, to be clear. I was not comfortable with an approach where we're penalizing the First Amendment right to peacefully protest. What we're doing is there's a real distinction arrow between peaceful protests, and which of course is allowed, and intimidation and harassment, which is not allowed. So what our bills do is they direct the NYPD to create a buffer zone. The word buffer is actually in the bills, and it creates buffer zones around houses of worship and around schools. And the point of the buffer zones is, again, people can peacefully protest, that's fine, but what they can't do is prevent people from going in and out of their house of worship or engaging in really intimidating and harassing behavior. So that's what this is really about. We've got to address the scourge of anti-Semitic incidents. We have to address the significant rise in Islamophobic incidents and other hate crimes. And so we believe that this whole package of bills, and there's 7 bills in the package that do a number of different things, are really one of the best ways to combat hate. We can't just sit idly by. That's why I asked Councilmember Salaam to lead this new committee. It's a new committee in the City Council to combat hate. There is so much hateful rhetoric happening. And so we really want to make sure that we're building bridges, that we're focused on inclusion and tolerance. We're also giving $1.25 million to the Museum of Jewish Heritage to bring 8th grade students into the Holocaust exhibition. Right now, studies are showing that 34% of young people believe the Holocaust is a myth or is exaggerated. I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. I do believe education is one of the best antidotes to hate.
Speaking of hateful rhetoric, you mentioned at yesterday's stated council meeting that Councilmember Vicky Palladino, whose online account called for the, quote, expulsion of Muslims from Western nations, that because of that and other statements, it was referred to the Ethics Committee.
Right.
What will they do about it? What's their range of jurisdiction?
So first of all, I have so strongly condemned Councilmember Palladino's rhetoric repeatedly. So I've now referred it to our Standards and Ethics Committee, which is now meeting next week. There are a range of options that the committee has under our rules. And so it's the committee's jurisdiction. It can be everything from a reprimand to censure to training to, and it ratchets up from there. So the committee is going to meet. I've directed the committee to meet. That's happening next week, and I've asked them to expeditiously look at this matter and conclude their investigation into it. We can't have a situation where we have a very strict harassment policy in the City Council. We can't have violations of that. Our harassment policy includes social media.
Right. And is expulsion on the table?
It's, first of all, there are a number of different remedies within Ethics Committee. I, as Speaker, cannot get ahead of the committee. That I'm actually legally not allowed to do. So I've got to allow the committee to do its work, and the committee will launch its investigation.
Have you ever spoken to your colleague, Councilmember Palladino, about those remarks or others like it?
I have not. You know, I come from a space where when someone tells you who you are or who they are, believe them. And so I think the challenge is, rather than talk to someone who espouses themselves in a particular way, for me, it's about understanding that the future generations, the people who are going to be the caretakers of tomorrow, they need to be taught the right way. Hate is taught, right? We were at the press conference this morning, and Imam Pasha from the mosque, Malcolm Shabazz on 116th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard, you know, he said something that was very, very interesting. He said, you know, every child that's born is born, they don't cry in their parents' language. They cry in one single language. It's the same language. And I think when we look at that, we realize that we have really an opportunity. I think that whenever we see these things happening around us, these are opportunities for us to be able to say, oh, we can do something about this in a positive way. And when I think about the fact that when you have children of different colors and different religious backgrounds and everything, if they're all playing together, the younger they are, if you say, who's that? They would say, that's my friend. It's not until they get a little older that a parent may say, oh no, he's black or he's Asian, or he's Jewish, or he's Muslim, or whatever. Those divisions, those things should make us know one another better and not push each other away.
Well, hopefully we will make some progress on that very question. I do remember when my son was very young, you'd say, that kid is green because they were wearing a green shirt,
Right,
I
right.
mean, it really does have to be taught. And unfortunately, we're all too good at teaching them those kind of divisions. Thanks so much for the work that you're doing. Thanks for coming in to talk.